Hello there, people of the internet. This is a little video series that I'm doing to try and earn my way up to 100,000 subscribers. On top of talking about different cartridges used for hunting, I'm also going over my entire arsenal, talking about the history and development of all of the firearms. Today, we're talking about hunting with particular cartridges, and the cartridge in question is, of course, the 30-30 Winchester, probably the most popular deer cartridge that has ever been used inside of the United States. However, in the next 100 years, we'll see how that holds up. So 30-30 Winchester was actually the first smokeless powder round available to the United States civilian market, put out by Winchester inside of their lever action series. In particular, the lever action 1894, I believe that was the year designation. And prior to that, these lever actions were using black powder, because smokeless powder was not invented until 1886 by the French. And whenever smokeless powder was invented, that was a new propellant to be able to propel projectiles at dramatically faster velocities. Black powder tended to propel projectiles around 1,400 to 1,700 or so feet per second, and that there's not very effective at, especially considering long ranges. So in order to get more energy transferred onto your target, you would use heavier and heavier projectiles, so you had more weight since you can't get more velocity. Well, now we have a propellant that can actually launch these rounds at a much faster velocity. And Winchester came out with their 94 series, which is a very, very, very strong action. And this right here is not a Winchester 94. This is a Marlin. Looks like it's based off of the 95 series of some kind. That's a Marlin 336. And that is what I'm going to be using for representation of this. So the 30-30 Winchester has been taking down deer ever since it came out and absolutely exploded in popularity. It was, like I said, the first smokeless powder round. The 30-30 stands for a 30 cal projectile that had 30 grains of smokeless powder behind it. Now, by today's standards, you need particular amounts of a particular type of powder to be able to reach whatever velocities it is that you're looking to reach. And if you use the wrong kind of powder, then you're going to have a bad day. Like 30 grains of tight group inside of a 30-30 Winchester would be a very bad day. I don't know, the 30-30 Winchester might be able to survive that, but geez Louise, would that be one heck of a ride. Anyway, that's kind of a rambled tangent on itself. Let's go ahead and look at the chart of what it is that we're dealing with here. Whenever it comes to the 30-30 ballistic information that I found, there was a lot of different variations. Apparently, there's some companies out there that kind of undercharge the 30-30 in order to be more safe for all of the older rifles out there that fire these. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at the modern day 30-30 projectile loadings. So the 30-30 is a 150 grain projectile. I have seen reports of it traveling at 200 or 2,200 feet per second, and reports of it traveling at 2,400 feet per second. So I guess that all depends on the manufacturer that you get it from. We're going to go ahead and cover the 2,400 feet per second because that would be the more effective version of this cartridge. That's going to impart about 1,900 foot-pounds of energy onto the target that it hits. Now, the 30-30 is not exactly a long-range cartridge. For the most part, it's generally agreed that within 300 yards and in, that's about the limitations of the 30-30. At that 300 yards, you're going to be dropping 26 inches with a 150 grain bullet traveling at 2,400 feet per second. Now, your velocities are going to have dipped down to about 1,400 feet per second, and the energy transferred on target is just over half of what you want. It's about 650 foot-pounds of energy onto that target. And because of that, you are well underneath that 1,000 foot-pounds of energy requirement that people want for hunting medium game. So proper shot placement is 110% a necessity at those distances because of that lack of energy transferred onto the target. Now, we're going to bump this up to a 170 grain bullet. I could not find a lot of data for this, but apparently the 170 grain, if we're talking about full power 30-30, travels at about 2,200 feet per second. That is about the average of what we saw from the previous one at 150 grain if we're talking about non-full loaded ammunition. But at full power, 150 grain, 2400 feet per second, 170 grain, 2200 feet per second. So a heavier bullet traveling a little bit slower, but still going to have plenty of punch down range. And I did find a loading for a 190 grain projectile that is going to travel at about 2100-ish feet per second. And that is going to impart about 1,860 foot-pounds of energy onto its target, which is absolutely 110% enough to be able to take down whatever it is that you're firing at. Now, those slower velocity rounds are obviously going to drop more out at these long distances. I was not able to find a drop chart for these other loadings, but the 150 grain, it drops at 26 inches, so it will be more than 26 inches at that 300 yards. Bear that in mind. If you decide to take these heavier bullets out to longer distances, you're going to have to kind of arc them in to your target. But that being said, the 30-30 has absolutely been taking deer for a very long time, along with a good number of other critters. Typically, I don't really use 30-30 all that much myself, but typically whenever I do, I normally rock 150 grain projectiles. It is a 308 diameter bullet, so I can find ammunition for it pretty easily. The only main issue with 30-30 is it tends to load from these lever actions that tend to load from tube-fed magazines, so you can't have Spitzer-style cartridges. I imagine that these would be much more accurate out at longer distances if you did. In this particular case, I have a Winchester 30-30. This is a 150 grain soft point, and we're going to go ahead and send this down range at our water jug right here, and we're going to watch this rifle absolutely turn this water jug into a bunch of mist. Alright, so from our Marlin 336, I believe that's this model, 30-30 Winchester. This right here is Winchester made 150 grain something or another. Should be traveling at about 2400-ish feet per second, or on the low side at 2200 feet per second, which should be absolutely enough for the 10 yards that we're at to completely vaporize the water inside of this jug. Yep, that was actually really cool to watch, and this ammo is reloadable, so I'll go ahead and I'll save this brass. Fantastic. Would I recommend using 30-30? Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, dude. Have fun. You know, I mean, most people aren't going to be hunting out past that 300-yard mark anyway, especially if you're in an area like I'm in. Here in the state of Florida, everything's all jungle. I mean, I never engage anything past 100 yards here in Florida. For the most part, I'm like within 20 yards of engagement. So the 30-30 is more than adequate to be able to handle those things. For the most part, I don't do 30-30 all that much, just because I like my milsurp rifles, and I like taking those out hunting just because I'm that kind of guy. But hey, if you want a 30-30 and you are in an area where within that 300-yard mark, you know, you'll be able to make your hits on target, then by all means go with a 30-30. If you're somewhere out in like the plains of the Midwest, then maybe you will have more issues with that, because maybe you'll have to be touching out to longer distances than that 300-yard mark. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of drop and a lot less energy onto the target. Not exactly a long-range cartridge, but boy is it powerful and potent enough to be able to take care of most of the situations that most of your hunters are going to come across. Absolutely capable. 110%. Here we are like 130 years later approximately. I didn't do all that math, but 130 years later, and this thing is still like very potent and very capable by today's standards for what hunters are looking for. So that being said, what do you guys think about the old 30-30? I know this right here is probably my father's favorite rifle cartridge. He has himself a 30-30 Winchester 94 AE, one of those angle eject systems. And he uses that thing for everything. Anytime he needs a gun for literally anything, he grabs that, puts it on his side-by-side, and I mean, he just, that's his gun. That is what he uses, and by all means, he's going to use that thing pretty much all the way up to his end. So, what do you guys think about a 30-30? I know I really like the 30-30. It is very similar in capability and ballistics to the 7.62x39, but just because I'm a military buff, the 7.62x39 is going to be my preference, especially considering the types of rifles that it comes out of. So I don't think I have anything else to add to the 30-30. It is impressive for what it is, but it is definitely not what a lot of people seem to think that it is. Okay, thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my mess out here. I'll see y'all later. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.